I'm using a different kind of pasta today, but it's just as good. Starting with some olive oil and a chopped onion, 3 cloves of garlic and some salt. This is a huge onion. You could use a smaller one or half. You can also chop the garlic if you want a stronger flavor, but I just kind of want a light infusion. I like a lot of red pepper flakes. You can use less. Also add dried oregano, thyme, and black pepper. I added my tomato paste, and the biggest mistake you can make is not letting it cook off long enough. You don't want it to have a raw flavor. I took the garlic out. That's kind of an Italian technique. I added the vodka, started cooking my pasta, and then also added the heavy cream. Cook the pasta about 3 minutes less than the package says so, because we want it to finish cooking in the sauce without becoming mushy. Add a little bit of your salty pasta water as well. It helps to really coat the pasta, and when you mix it with the butter and cheese, it makes everything really glossy. You really don't need a pasta machine. I have one and I never use it because it takes me the same amount of time by hand. So let me show you how to do it because it's really fun. This is the dough that I made in the last video. I let it rest at least 30 minutes, wrapped in plastic wrap at room temperature. You can also refrigerate it overnight. Just take it out about 30 minutes before. You want to use a flat rolling pin, not something tapered. And if all you have to roll it out is like a wine bottle or just a really small rolling pin, I recommend dividing the dough in sections so it's not too large. Once it's thin enough that it's basically transparent, I roll it up from either end so they meet in the middle. And make sure it's extremely well floured on either side. Cut off the rough edges, and then today I'm making tagliatelle, but you could make any thickness. It's super tempting to hold your knife at a little bit of an angle, but you want to cut straight down so your pasta doesn't end up zigzaggy. This is a really fun trick, but you can just stick your knife underneath and they all kind of fall out like that. If I'm not cooking the pasta the day of, I actually freeze it and then cook it from frozen. Spaghetti aglio e olio is known as a midnight snack in Italy because it's really quick to make and you can reasonably accomplish this under the influence after a night out. It's basically spaghetti with garlic and olive oil, and it takes just about 10 minutes to make. Add a lot of salt to your boiling water and then drop in your pasta. I have exact measurements on my website, Chef Eats, but you're going to want to start with half of your olive oil, olio, and all of your garlic, aglio. I'm using red pepper flakes, but if you had fresh peperoncino, that's better. You want this to sizzle on medium-low heat, but do not burn the garlic. After the pasta has just boiled 5 minutes, add the rest of the oil and then add your pasta to the pan. Add a scoop of pasta water and mix vigorously. The pasta is going to finish cooking about 4 more minutes in the pan. Keep mixing, make sure it's bubbling, and if it gets dry, add a little more pasta water. Finally, you're just going to add a bunch of chopped parsley. Traditionally, there's no cheese or lemon in this dish, and you don't need it if you did it right. This might be my hottest take yet, but most people make horrible pie crust and we gotta raise our standards. I want it this flaky, and for the love of God, no vegetable shortening. This dough uses no special equipment, it takes 10 minutes to make, and it can live in your freezer for months. You can make it now, save it for Christmas, use it next week, whatever you want. Flattening out our cold butter between our hands. The food processor is the worst thing you could use for this. It overworks the dough and makes the pieces of butter too small. Vodka is the secret ingredient. It totally cooks off, but if you can't have it, you could also sub apple cider vinegar. Vodka obviously wets the dough, but since it's not water, it inhibits gluten formation, and too much gluten can make your dough tough. You still want to add as little liquid as humanly possible, just enough so it barely presses together. To make it extra flaky, you're going to cut it in thirds and do this twice. This is kind of a faux lamination that gives it extra layers. It makes 2 single crust pies or 1 double, wrap it and freeze it, and I baked off some samples to show you. You've probably seen my crispy potatoes, and a lot of people ask for mashed potatoes. My grandma's twice baked potatoes are the best of both worlds. Creamy mashed potatoes on the inside, and you still get the crispy skin. We don't have a holiday without these. Clean 8 russet potatoes, prick them all over with a fork, and bake them at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 70 minutes. When they're cool enough to touch, cut off the tops and scoop out the guts.